G'day guys, just thought I'd go through a few races early for Saturday. Had a quick look at most of them, so I thought, yeah, just there's a couple of races that look worth chatting about early. Race 1 at Randwick, just this horse, Kryptonic. It's gone off, no it's not. $17. So it's just a horse, it's a tough race. It's actually a harder race than what I hoped it would come up against, but it's just the horse that I thought poked up nicely up the inside and the wrong part of the track at Kembla first up behind Los Padres, and then last time just dragged out of the race on that heavy track behind Signor Tertoni, where it was very hard to run on. Sort of came down the outside. Didn't do anything special there, but I was just hoping it'd draw a gate. It's in at Hawkesbury as well. I'm hoping they run here because it finally drew a gate. Gets a rider change, which looks a positive as well, and a dry surface, which all, looks good. 1,400 metres it hasn't seen before, but again, I think it looks suited and just can run a race. It's no moral by any stretch, as I'm sort of trying to get to, but I think, $17, it's worth something small. So let's just test this out. Randwick race 1, number 6. Just a small speculator is Kryptonic. Next race, all right, so let's go through them. Race 2, no. Race 3, no. Race 4, no. Hoping Salt Coach runs tomorrow. Looks like it will. It doesn't have a rider down here. Might be scratched already. Let me just check. Yeah, it's come out already, so it'll run tomorrow at Wyong, which is good. Race 5, no. Race 6, no, haven't got there. That's an actually interesting race worth looking at. All right, here's the races that probably are the most interesting. Race 7, the Chelmsford. Everyone's found CO Wolf. It looks kind of justified. Just looking at the map, it looks like it's going to be very difficult for a horse like Cerdilius to get across. There's just these little annoying horses, Arapaho and Full Count Felicia, sort of jumping up near the inside. I'm sure that CO Wolf will be trying to hold a spot too. So, in a perfect world, if Cerdilius could follow Lindemann across and sit outside it, or Robusto could kick forward and land in the 1-1, if it just sort of fell like the map looks here, Cerdilius is very dangerous. If he doesn't get across, he's probably forced back and then he's in trouble. $3.80 short. If he was $7, $8, $9, $10 Cerdilius, you'd probably have something on him. But, it probably something's going to have to happen for CO Wolf to get beat here. Bit of a sit sprinter that looks well suited here, second up against sort of horses that are probably looking for further or, should be vulnerable. So I'm not telling anyone to unload on at $2.10. Certainly not my style of price or bet. It's going to be in an awkward spot potentially, especially if it doesn't jump that well. So, but it does look justified favourite, if that makes sense. All right, next, race 8. Now we're getting into the races that I think are probably early play sort of races. Looking at these horses, obviously the main players, Lady Shenandoah, Headwell, Jimmy Star, looking for intent here. Headwell's got all the intent. It's the horse that wants to win to try and get a slot in the Everest. Jimmy Star's already in there. Lady Shenandoah may be trying to do the same thing, but not as much pressure. He's got a lot of options. They're not that worried either way, I don't think. A horse like Jetabil's trying to get there as well. Does it have the class of the others? That's the question. Obviously, a very smart, fresh 1,000-metre horse. In flight's not hopeless either, but I think it's got to go to another level. Interesting to see a bit of money for New York Luster, who was the horse I was going to tip at 40-1, but it's in at $26. So, yeah, I just think it's just hard to get away from the main players here. So
on King's Duty, and they're away. It was the best to begin. King's Duty over Cutie Pie.
Here's Jimmy Star. I'll just try and sort of make it as big as I can. So Jimmy Star gets dragged back here. You can watch trials in fast speed like I normally do. So just all I'm interested in is how he jumps, how he travels, and then how he finishes off. The middle of most trials aren't that exciting, but here you can just see sort of under his own steam, he's getting to the line extremely well. They come home pretty quick here. That's his first jump out, and then past the line, he's doing a good job. That's all you want to see.
Mile 7 of the day, first of the 800s. Set to go. Away.
Small field here. You'd love him to be this close in the race on Saturday. It'd be hard to beat. But again, just, under his own steam, doing everything you want to see. This sort of horse, he looks very fresh. He's not like a monster sort of horse. Through the line again, you see he's just everything you want to see. Obviously, this is not a super strong trial by any means. They do run fast time home, both trials, which is important again because he's come off speed and closed ground on them. So, yeah, he's going to get back in the run. And I'll get to sort of my point in a minute. Headwell's very similar trials. We'll show the second one because it also has Jetabil in it. This horse to me is just an out-and-out 1,000-metre horse, which is obviously very important in a 1,000-metre race. Not many back markers are genuine 1,000-metre horses because it's so hard to sort of round horses up. But this has got such a good turn of foot and can sustain it for sort of 200-300 metres that it can really track into a race and then let down and get past horses, which is hard to do in 1,000-metre races. So Headwell's back towards the inside here. Jetabil's coming to the outside in the nose roll. They both trial well, but you can see Jetabil's really pushed out, maybe in the worst ground, and Headwell's not, pushed out as much. He's given a squeeze and sort of closes in nicely up the inside. So, yeah, they both look ready to go. And my issue is here, sort of Lady Shenandoah, it's hard to see. He's coming out of really slowly run trials. So 3 trials, 900, 1,000, 900. Not an ideal prep for me for a sort of horse that's proven out to 1,500 metres to be sharp and ready to go over 1,000. This is a very good horse, don't get me wrong. My biggest worry with this horse is the map. And even though it's got James McDonald Gate 1, which looks great on paper, and again, hard to see, but these horses that are going to lead are Philosopher and Hard to Say, 100 to 1, 80 to 1. Then you've got Spring Lee drawn outside it. So if Spring Lee crosses it, or even if it sits outside it, and Tiger Shark rolls forward with blinkers as well, Ostraka, who's not really a sharp 1,000-metre horse, Generosity, you've got a lot of horses around Lady Shenandoah that are not going to be taking her wherever she wants to go. If he fashions a passage out of there on the bend or the gap's open and the horse sprints through, you're probably going to end up with egg on your face. But more often than not, especially with a dry track true rail, this horse is going to have to either go to the worst ground if the fence is no good, or it's going to have to duck and weave horses that are stopping. And the key to sort of 1,000-metre races usually is by the 400-metre mark. They're all trying to find that striking position. If Lady Shenandoah is held up and a horse like Headwell, who's drawn middle of the field, probably be second half of the pack, but tracking up, and Jimmy Star, who's going to be in the similar spot, trying to find the back of a New York Luster, Mornington Glory, that sort of horse, then launch to the outside, they're going to have a full head of steam up while Lady Shenandoah's poking through looking for runs. As I said, if she gets the dream run, nothing you can do about it. But more often than not, I feel like one of these two horses are going to be letting rip down the outside, if not both of them, with a clean sort of passage. And, they're going to be very hard to beat. Jetabil's a chance, in flight less of a chance for mine, but there's Ostraka's not hopeless, and already said New York Luster, if it's given a very good ride from a very poor draw, is going well. So there are more chances, but they're all sort of big odds, so you can sort of afford to have something small on them, I guess. But I think Jimmy Star and Head will run a very good race here. Big, long-winded explanation, but that's my thinking, that I just think she's going to get bogged down more often than not with traffic. Race 9. Let's hit the Tramway Stakes. Another race I'm actually quite interested in here. I think now that Lineback has come out and said that it's going to go forward, it really makes it a race that you want to play in. I think Private Eye's a favourite. No huge knock on Private Eye. It went out really slow last start and was absolutely gifted the race at Caulfield. It still ran the second fastest last 200 of the day off the back of that slow tempo. So, it's not as if he's not going well. I think there's a couple of new 4-year-olds, just finished the first time since we've seen them since they were 3-year-olds, Swift Falcon and Linebacker here, that are pretty progressive horses. And I feel that it may be a bit of a changing of the guard on Saturday. He's well weighted, Private Eye. He's got a fitness edge on them. He's got Nash. The draw's not too bad, as you sort of saw. There's a case that he'll sort of land in a good position if he follows Pericles and with your blessing across. Linebacker's drawn outside him, so he's either got the option to push forward, push for the front, push for outside leader, or try and drop in, just behind on the back of Private Eye potentially. So, yeah, it's going to be a tactical affair for the ones up the front. The trial was okay for Linebacker, probably not worth watching overly. I thought the trial of this horse, the first one was a bit misleading because it's beaten a long way, but I thought the trial of Swift Falcon is worth looking at. So he's jumping well, which is good. This is Lady Shenandoah. He doesn't need to be back last. He was a product. It was a product of where he sort of ended up, and he's run quite a few times. I think this horse, you can see he's dragged out here, is a 1,400 metre miler. I don't think he's a 2,000 metre horse. And some of his efforts, beaten efforts, have been astronomical. Lady Shenandoah choked down here, but this is Swift Falcon coming down the outside. What price would Lady Shenandoah be in this race? She'd probably be 6-4. I'm not saying that Lady Shenandoah could have beaten this horse in the trial or it means anything, but he's definitely lengthened very nicely. Will he improve off this run? Probably, but I think he's going to be well enough ready to win first up 1,400 metres here. He came from off the speed at Flemington one day with a 61.5 and was sort of dominant off a slow tempo. Then he ended up getting to sort of Group 1 grade last prep and was beaten by Linebacker and broadsiding a couple of times. He never really got to salute the judge. And then by the end of his prep out to 2,000 metres, he was short, but he was cooked, I think. And, it's just good to see that he's come back in good order, and this really could be his preparation if they keep him to 1,400 a mile. I think he's very dangerous here. And as I said, Private Eye's always been one of my favourite horses, but I think Saturday's the day that we sort of got to back the two 4-year-olds to beat him. So I think Swift Falcon's about $5.50 at the moment, and Linebacker's $6. Which one do you make the better play? I'd back them both to win something, and muck around with these multis with those two sort of head wall. Jimmy Star, I don't think is a bad option, sort of getting 30-1 about the double, each way, the four of them. And then if the pattern's suiting on paces, Linebackers you want, and then and Swift Falcon's a nice backup if they overdo it, and if they're running on, Swift Falcon's your main play, and if they sort of underdo the tempo and Linebacker rolls forward, they're a really solid 1-2 punch here, and it's probably just the pattern decides which one's your best option. I think I think they're a decent one to play. The last I want to have a closer look at, we'll go to Melbourne for a couple of races. The Moya's tricky. Anyone who's watched Little Birdie already, we're pretty vocal about this race and the chance of a few horses, but it's quite tough. I thought Barracuda is the one to beat. It's just going to land in an interesting spot there. If it lands sort of 3 wide or 1 off, 5th, 6th, something like that, I can see the horse, it's just so important horses get around this track and race well here, and Barracuda has done that many times. So it's going to accelerate from the sort of 400-500 metre mark and be hard to beat. And yeah, my old favourite horse, Skybird, I think she's just trialling like an absolute rocket. I don't think I can get the trials up here. They'll come up on a different screen unless I can bring them down here, which, yeah, no, that's going to work. Kind of. Move across.
Off they go from the 800 start.
So Skybird's in the white with the greeny sort of colours. Good to see her show a bit of speed here in an 800 metre jump out. I'm not big on these jump outs, but I do like when you see them sort of driven out.
Bird is now asked to do something, and she quickly goes to take the prize and heads her. Makosha in 3rd spot, but Skybird having a nice workout here in the last 100.
And that's all you want to see. Ears pricked, sprints when asked, sharp work, ready to rumble. So yeah, I think Skybird and Barracuda are the two hardest to beat there. A lot of chances. Neonce, if it gets a nice run from the outside draw. Alabama Lass is interesting. They're probably my top 4. We're talking top 4 in a race. But I think, sort of around $10. Skybird's interesting, and I think you'll probably get $6 or $7 Barracuda. So they're the two for me there. were there other races we looked at there? Yeah, there was nothing super stand out. They're probably the main early races for me. Good to see that I didn't update these list of horses here, but yeah, I think those two races in Sydney are quite interesting, sort of 1-2 punches. So they'll probably be my best early crack. Is Jimmy Star and Headwall into both Linebacker and Swift Falcon. And yeah, we'll come back with plenty more between now and Saturday. Cheers, guys.